Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahar Kodash. First off, Salaki, I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who have taught us this word and teach us this word today. And I want to give a salutation unto the elect of the nation of Israel. Let me make sure. Okay, I want to make sure my mic was recording. This is the brother Yatazak Bob with the GMS Nebraska camp. And in this lesson, what I want to touch on a few things from the movie Demolition Man, which I first heard of from the apostles, and they often bring out the predictive programming in that movie and how it points to a lot of the things that Esau is going to fulfill and is fulfilling in real life in order to bring their new world order to pass. And I finally watched the movie. The brother, one of the brothers in the camp, one of the elder brothers in the camp urged me to watch it, and I watched it. And, very spiritual movie, and just wanted to speak on a couple of things in regards to that predictive programming and what we're seeing in real life. First I wanted to get the definition of predictive programming, what that means. And it says, predictive programming is a conspiratorial theory proposing that the elite use fictional media, movies, books, and television to subtly condition the public to accept future, often nefarious planned events or societal changes. So the elites, primarily, the elites of Esau, Esau is who is ruling over this world today, the so-called white man, and he has different agendas and plans and things that he wants to do. And this is something that the elite do, to where they will put certain things in the media that we consume, in pop culture, in these different things that is hinting toward what they're going to do in real life. This is how they get down. The scriptures say we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. These people are doing the bidding of Satan on this earth, and the Lord has given us the spirit to be able to look at these different things and not just take it at face value as just entertainment, but the elites communicating, and saying, hey, this is what we plan to do. Demolition Man has a lot of this predictive programming in regards to the chip, in regards to this new world order, this total surveillance and control, basically this totalitarian rule that they're trying to implement. You also have movies like The Purge, for example, which is something that Esau wants to bring, a state of all-out chaos, so that a system of control can be brought, which we're going to talk about that, because that was something that Demolition Man pointed toward as well. You even have like The Simpsons, for example. People point out the different conspiracies in The Simpsons and how they predict certain things before they happen, and that's predictive programming, but it says the core concept is that it operates on the idea that public consciousness is prepared for shocking events. Examples given: crisis, surveillance, pandemics, through entertainment media, making the eventual reality appear as normal or already experienced. Right, so it's like conditioning people's minds. This is Esau also does this with gradualism, to where before he just totally implements a certain thing, such as a digital cashless society, he will slowly move into that direction, so that when you finally get there, it was an ease of steps that people were taking through, instead of just a total change that happened overnight, to where it was almost like normal for a lot of people. It was like just regular life, instead of being something that would, people get whiplash from, for lack of better words. But without further ado, let's get into a couple of things from the movie. Let's get some scriptures, and Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. And first and foremost, the first thing that comes to mind is that, you had in this movie that people were, I believe they called it being tagged, which was, this movie, the main character, Demolition Man himself, he was put into a cryo freeze, which was basically, this form of imprisonment, to where instead of serving your sentence as you would regularly in prison, they froze him for 30 years and sent them, I believe it was 30 years, and basically preserved him and then thawed him out in the future. Now, in this future, in the movie, people were tagged with a microchip in their hand. And this is exactly what we read about in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, where it says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads." Now, who's that he? That's talking about the elites of Esau, those who rule over this world today. It says what? They cause all, both small and great, so people who are, your everyday citizens, and, people who have more status in society, rich and poor, which is self-explanatory. Your people who are more well off, your celebrities, the wealthy, and those who are impoverished in need. It says free and bond. Those who, are just walking everyday life, and those who are in prison. Esau wants everybody under this grid to wear what? It says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now, what's that mark? When you get into the definition of this word mark, it goes to the Greek word charagma, which is a stamp and imprinted mark. It says of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the Antichrist. And, that definition is going off a bit because, that's that Christian teaching that you have this ultimate Antichrist. The scripture says that there are many Antichrists. That's just anybody that is against the Lord, essentially. What that should say is the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of Esau's system. And we see this being taking place in real life because you have people getting this chip in their hand. Look at Sweden, for example. You have a lot of people who have the chip in their hand, and it allows them, it allows them to buy and sell. It allows them access to get into their cars, into their houses, and these different things. You have Elon Musk's Neuralink, which is fulfilling this prophecy as well. But when you look into the movie, let's read verse 17 and then speak on a couple things that the movie showed. It says, "And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." And so it's saying that unless you have this chip, that you won't be able to buy or sell anything in society, because cash is going to go out the window. Esau wants to create a cashless society to where fiat notes are obsolete, a thing of the past, and we're dealing with nothing but digital payments. And this is what we see happening in real life, to where we're getting closer and closer to a total digital payment society. As of the present time, over 80% of transactions in stores are digital, which is showing that we're almost to the point to where people ain't really dealing with cash no more. Now what we saw in the movie is that you had basically I would say the main antagonist. He was frozen as well in this this cryo freeze, and when he thawed out, he didn't have the chip in him. So he was like, this crazy criminal that was wreaking havoc, and basically the main characters, they were saying that he was gonna go try to get a gun, but they was like, how is he gonna get a gun? Because he doesn't have, basically he don't got the chip, so he's not gonna be able to go to no gun store and buy one. And that's showing that even in this movie, it's showing that unless you had that, you won't be able to buy or sell, because they said in the movie that paper money wasn't used anymore. You had to have that technology in you to be able to buy things. The main character, that Demolition Man, when he was going into his apartment, for him to get into his door, he had to wave his hand over his to unlock his door and get inside. So this is the world that we're going into, and the reason why Esau wants to get everybody with this technology is because it is going to give him the ability to have control over people. because we seen in the movie, you had the people who stayed underground, and they were basically outcasts from society. They were the people who basically went off the grid because they didn't want to be under the elite's control. And it showed that, what was the reason that they didn't want to get it? Because they didn't want to have to abide by how the elites wanted them to live, to where you do what they want, when they want you to do it, where they want you to do it at all times. And this is what Esau, this is the idea that Esau wants to set up in real life. Because why? He has a God complex. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 47, verse 10, which says, "For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me." So this is speaking of Esau, his mindset. It says, "Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it had perverted thee." So Esau's left hand wisdom and knowledge, this grand idea that he's come up with on the left hand side of this one world order, this technocracy that he's building, it's perverted him. Let's get that word perverted, which is Strong's 87725, which is the Hebrew word shawab, which means which we're going to get straight to the point, which says to turn away from the Most High. So this this wisdom that the Lord has allowed Esau to have on the left hand side has made Esau basically turn away from the Most High and believe that Esau can be on the Most High's level and greater. Because as we read, it says, "Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it had perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me." And this is what these technocrats and these people who are, at the head of this new world order, this is the mindset that they're in and what they believe. They believe that as the Most High says that he exists, and that everything is under his control. Esau believes that he can do the same thing of everything being under his control. And that's why he wants everybody with that chip, because once you get it, he controls what you get to do. He controls, well, hey, you can't buy or sell without it. You can't live in society without it. You can't live with the comforts that you're used to living, to living with. They couldn't drive their cars in the movie unless they had that technology. They couldn't, do nothing unless they had it. And so basically, Esau wants people to have to turn to him and acknowledge him as basically their higher power in order to live life. But you had, the people, like I mentioned before, the people who was living underground, who basically went off the grid, and they were enemies to the elite because they wasn't getting down with his system. And, through the spirit, that kind of represents us in this truth, those who are, standing for Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, because the elect ain't going to receive this chip, because we're going to stand firm in our faith and our servitude toward Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, and as the scriptures say, let's go to Romans chapter 11, verse 4, which says, "But what said the answer of the Most High unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal." And those 7,000 men isn't a literal 7,000. That 7,000 represents a complete number. And it represents the 144,000, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, basically the elect, who here it says they have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal, which is basically an idol, a false image, contrary to the Most High Yahweh. Well, this beast system that Esau is setting up is an idol at the end of the day, and the elect are not going to bow themselves down to it. So we see the state that these people living underground had to live in, to where they was in need. They wasn't able to eat like that. They had to steal to get their food. They had to stay off the grid because they was being tracked down. You had the leader of their basically their society off the grid, where you had the the main guy, which basically represented the elites in the movie, he was trying to get him killed, because of his resistance. And that's how it's going to be for us in this truth, because it says in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, it says, "And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years." So we are going to be faced with death for rejecting this system, and that's why this the scriptures call this a great time of testing, because it's going to show us, this time is going to show who is going to hold their integrity and their faith in Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, even when all their comforts are taken away, even when they are faced with death and hardships. Will a man of the Lord still stay 10 toes down for this truth? That's what this time is going to be a test of. Now, a couple other things that were shown in the movie, really, which was more of the control that Esau wants to set up. Just like you had in the movie where in this future world, if you basically used profanity, then you were automatically ticketed, which showed that Esau was listening at all times. You had to basically talk how Esau wanted you to talk. You had to carry yourself how Esau wanted you to carry yourself, and you couldn't live how you wanted to, basically. And this is the world that we're going into. Esau wants to fit everybody into his mold of how he believed life is supposed to be, and that's that image of the beast. That image, which is basically life in his image, contrary to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai's image, fulfilling that Greco-Roman way of life, that democracy, his religions he pushed, his science that he pushes, his way of life. And if you are if you contrary to it, you're basically going to be an enemy. You're going to be penalized for it. That goes into how do we see that happening today? Well, look at the what is it called? Because you have this system going on in China, which is basically social credit, to where based off of how a person is carrying themselves, they would either be penalized or benefited by the government based off of their conduct. Because in China, they have this total surveillance state. They have all type of cameras everywhere. They're surveilling people's conduct on the internet, and they're a couple steps away from basically what Esau wants to set up, to where he basically just has the chip in everybody. But based off of the government constantly surveilling everybody, if you are not carrying yourself in a way that the government agrees with, then you'll be penalized. Just like in the movie, they had to pay a fees and tickets for profanity. Well, it's the same thing, over there in China. If you let's get an example. Let's look it up. Let's look up what can you be penalized for in the Chinese social credit system. It says the Chinese social credit system, officially the social credit system, primarily focuses on promoting compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and court orders rather than a single nationwide score that tracks everyday personal behaviors, like in popular Western media depictions. And it brings up Black Mirror, which that's what they're going into, though. It says the system relies heavily on blacklists for untrustworthy entities. So let's get into it. Let's see what makes a person untrustworthy, or these different things. It says penalties are mainly triggered by serious or repeated violations, often involving legal non-compliance, and it can restrict high-level travel, such as you can't buy plane tickets, you can't get train tickets. Um, it limits accessing government subsidies, public procurement tax breaks, restrictions on holding certain positions, like at a job, bans on luxury spending or high consumption activities, denial of loans, credits, certain jobs and positions, public shaming, like your name being listed in public. Um, it says impacts on family members, like your children can be barred from certain private schools. And what will cause a person to do this is refusing to comply with court judgments, tax violations, financial misconduct, administrative violations such as breaches in environmental protection, food safety, product quality. It says refusing to perform legal obligations, other serious dishonesty like bribery, spreading harmful misinformation, quote unquote, just like this truth that we preach, just like the different so-called conspiracy theories that people push on the internet. They would call that harmful misinformation, like the medical misinformation that people talk about when it comes to the jab and things of the sort. That could get you penalized, and you could face the penalty of some of these things that we name. Like you can't get loans, you can't get credit, you can't get certain jobs, you can't get a plane ticket, these different things. It says like for people who didn't comply during COVID, with the quarantine compliance laws in China, like they were penalized for things like that. It says in some local pilot cities, point-based deductions have occurred for offenses like traffic violations, drunk driving, jaywalking, littering, not wearing masks during the pandemic, disorderly conduct, defying authority. So that movie showed, an example of that, and this is going to be a thing in real life, to where if having a quote unquote moral or ethical lapse in the eyes of Esau, you can get penalized. If it gets to a point to where you're not paying off something, or, you're, I don't know, not complying with some type of law that Esau wants you to comply with, they'll pull up at your door. Because if you got that chip in you, Esau know where you at all times. He's able to track you. So let's see. What was something else in the movie? Oh, one thing that is showed in the movie that was a beautiful example of something that Esau does in real life is how he creates black swan events and false flag events so that he can bring his agenda to pass. Because you had the main antagonist, which I mentioned before, the super criminal that was put in the cryo freeze, where when they thawed him out, the elites was using him to cause all type of chaos in society. The elites was using him and allowing him to do all type of crazy stuff, so that the general public would be scared, so that they would be, worried and fearful. And what the elites wanted to do was that they would use that public fear to come in with more control and more laws and regulations, and it would seem like a thing that needed to be done. But what it was that the elites was actually creating a problem, and they were bringing the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. This is what the elites do. And we see this in real life. Just like with these different protests that turn into riots, what they'll do is that they'll have a crisis actor, to where they'll put in somebody from the CIA, for example, or somebody that's an insider in these protests, and make them start acting belligerent and violent, to where these protests get out of hand. And then what? That means that more of a crackdown needs to happen, just like what we see in real time with ICE and the National Guard. Don't be surprised if you see somebody get violent with ICE and possibly delete one of these agents, and that causes Trump to do what? To bring in the Insurrection Act. And the whole time, that person that got violent with that agent was a crisis actor. And he did that so that Insurrection Act could be passed, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened, or nobody would have got to that point. This is the type of stuff that Esau does, and let's grab this precept real fast, because Esau acts like, the different things that he's doing is good for society. Esau is going to bring this chip as if it's the answer to life, as if it's something that we need, but really it's all for his nefarious plans. Let's get Sirach chapter 12 and verse 10, which says, "Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust had not been altogether wiped away." So we're going to see advertisements and, these different governments coming out with this, with these digital IDs and, ultimately the chip, and say that this is for national security. This is so that we can stop terrorism. This is for health. This is for this and that. And that's not what it's about at the end of the day. They're going to come out and say that we need to chip people because of how bad immigration has gotten. When you look at the Biden administration in 2020, they was letting immigrants into the country. So they was creating an issue to where now that Trump is in office, you have a so-called immigrant crisis, and now ICE has to get involved. And it's showing that Esau will create a problem so that he can then bring in the solution that he wants to bring in. Let's go down to Sirach chapter 12, verse 16, which says, "An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood." This reminds me of the whole Make America Healthy Again campaign, to where you had RFK saying that they want to create wearables that people wear that tracks their health and tells them the type of foods that they need to be eating that's healthy. And all that the government need to do is ban these processed foods out of these stores, ban all these foods that got all these chemicals and all this bad stuff. You don't have to make wearables mandatory so that people become healthy. No, ban the stuff that's making people unhealthy. Because what the wearables is going to lead to is ultimately the chip. And they may have it to where the chip has different features that tell you, what you need to do to stay in good health and things of the sort. But that's just a feature. That's just a cookie for people to enjoy their leash that Esau is putting them on at the end of the day. Because Esau has to make this seem wonderful. He has to make it seem good. Just like he's doing with the Neuralink. When you see how Esau is pushing this Neuralink, he's pushing it as this device that's allowing people who is handicapped to interact with their family again. It's allowing them to live life, before they, had whatever injury they had, or before they, got into this state. Look how wonderful this technology is. Look how wonderful this science is. That's how Esau is going to push it. It's going to play on people's heartstrings. It's going to play on people's minds. But at the end of the day, what Esau just wants to do is that he wants to have control over the human race. So let's go to slacking 1 second. And I'm kind of jumping around in this lesson because I'm remembering things as they come to me with the movie. But you had predictive policing in the movie, to where they was using their technology to basically predict what a criminal was going to do before they did it, which you have that with Palantir today, where Palantir is tracking what people are doing, what they're buying, their different habits of where they drive, throughout their daily commute, which basically, with the use of AI, gives them the ability to basically predict what a person is going to do before they do it. And all this technology, this AI, this microchip, all these different things, it's all so that Esau can mimic the power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And it's a cheap copy. No matter what type of technology Esau comes up with, it will never be on the level of the Most High. Because this chip, Esau is doing all this to bring this new world order to pass, and it's all going to be shut down. It's all going to be destroyed. The scriptures say that the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. So it's the Lord that got Esau in this mindset to even bring this to bring this technology about. Esau bringing this technology about, but it's going to harm people. These phones already is emitting all type of frequencies and radiation into us. So imagine what the microchip is going to do inside of a person. That's why the scriptures talk about them grievous sores that those who receive this chip is going to get. That's talking about that radiation poisoning. And that shows how flawed Esau's way is. At all the different left-hand side copies that he can create of what the Lord has created. For example, it mentioned in the movie, just like in real life today, that they was creating babies in labs. You had to have a license in order to have an actual pregnancy. And so instead you can go to a lab and have your baby created there, and that's something that you can do in real life. But it's a wicked left-hand sided copy of the natural order that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai has created. The Lord created man and woman to come together, and Esau wants to come in and disrupt that order and create AI robots that can hold babies. But it's not going to be the same as the Lord's creation. It's not going to be like a regular human. It's going to have all type of flaws and deficiencies, and it's just off. It's wicked. And this is why Esau has to be taken down out of power. This is why this new world order has to be shut down. The Lord has set out in these scriptures the proper way to live, the proper way so that the proper order, so that things can function the way that it's supposed to function. And then Esau comes in and thinks that he has a better way. Esau thinks that he can cast aside Yahweh Ba'ashem, the laws that the Most High Yahweh gave our nation, and create his own way. And look at the disorder that this world is in because of it. That's why the scriptures say, let's go to this real fast. Isaiah 24:4, which says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The hardy people of the earth do languish. So the earth is being polluted under Esau's rulership. The ocean is being polluted. The air, the soil. It's to the point to where Esau is having to create lab-grown meat and artificial plants and all these different things because he wants to get rid of the natural order that the Lord has set up of us eating animals. The animals that we're supposed to be eating, like cows, lawful animals that it says in the scriptures. The Esau wants to do away with that and create lab-grown meat. Esau wants to do away with us, tilling the field and make lab vegetables. If Isaiah 24:5 says, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. The Lord created things to be ruled underneath Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai's governance, and then Esau comes in with atheism. Esau comes in with all types of false religions, all types of false gods. And this is why the earth is out of order. But Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I know it was a bit all over the place, but it was just pointing out some things that came to mind about the movie that we see happening in real life, and things that we're about to see very soon prophetically. You know, the scriptures say that, let's go to Habakkuk 2 and 3, which says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. So these prophecies such as the MOTB, we see it speaking. We see Esau setting up the infrastructure needed so that once he wants to go online with the MOTB and start getting people chipped, everything's set up the way that it needs to be set up. He's setting up these 15-minute cities, you know, he's setting up this AI infrastructure, all the things that's needed so that his new world order can be on point. We see this prophecy coming to pass slowly but surely. Not slowly at this point. Hey, the Lord's speeding up the times. We're about to see this very soon. You know, it says, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. You know, so as the scriptures say, the Lord is going to come like a thief, like a thief in the night. You know, there's going to come a time where these prophecies is going to be coming like back to back. You know, and that's what we see happening. Ever since Trump has come into office, we've seen all type of end time prophecies, all type of actions going into the direction of end time prophecy and accelerating. You know, so these different things that we see in Demolition, man, we about to be seeing in real life. You know, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory into Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, by Rakar Kwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS, and a salutation unto the elect. Shalom.